I'm Sarah. I'm with the charity Hedgehog Helpline. We're based in South Wales. I manage one of the field hospitals, and I'm also a trustee of the charity and their treasurer. So just to give you a little brief about Hedgehog Helpline. We were formed 37 years ago. Very shortly afterwards, our vet came on board as a volunteer. Keith and Kay, who are both our founders, basically met and joined forces. Keith sadly passed away a couple of years ago, and Kay you may have heard of. She's actually a trustee with BHPS and created Hedgehog Awareness Week. So we had two incredible people starting us off, along with Graham, who was our vet. In 1995, we became a registered charity. Keith, Kay and Graham became trustees, along with another lady and Kay's husband. As it says on the tin, we rescue, rehabilitate and release sick, injured and orphaned hedgehogs. We cover South East Wales, but we will cover further afield if the hedgehog finder will actually deliver the hedgehog to us. And we always take the hedgehogs back to where they come from. We currently have, as of count last night, 81 volunteers. They cover hands-on hedgehog care, telephone cover for our helpline and our vet. And it's really important that people know that we are actually a vet-led rescue, and our vet is a volunteer and doesn't receive any remuneration for his work. We've got no headquarters. We're a network of field hospitals based at carers' homes. So we are essentially the same as somebody who would by themselves rehabbing at their home. All of our roles are voluntary and they're unpaid. So we don't receive any expenses or anything carrying out our role. So this is our structure, as you can see. Graham, our vet, heads. He is also our chair, but ultimately Graham is the one that is responsible for the entire organisation and every single hedgehog that is admitted into Hedgehog Helpline. He's very hands-on, and he manages all our training, our CPD. He does it all. If there's any hedgehogs that need operations on, x-rays, etc., then he does them, and he could be doing that at 10 o'clock at night for us, or Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. We've got 4 admitting field hospitals. They are scattered around South Wales. I cover Field Hospital 1, and I'm slightly different to the other 3 hospitals because I'm on the M4 border. So we're a really busy unit here. We're very built up. I'm on the outskirts of Cardiff. So you can imagine on the M4 corridor, we've got lots of developments, etc. So we're very busy. We also operate a helpline. We've always operated a helpline. We're not just about admitting hedgehogs into rehab. We're about supporting people with any queries with hedgehogs as well. And we have 22 dedicated call handlers that cover that. We also have some back office people who cover events coordinator. A big one for us is one of our charitable aims is education. So we attend a lot of events and talks. So we've got somebody who will coordinate that, and then volunteers will attend. We've got a release garden coordinator. We've got 2 patrons. We've got some advocates and ambassador. And we've got a couple of people who coordinate the rota and transfer in the handset. Obviously, we've got us as trustees carrying out roles, and we've got Caroline, who's our secretary, as well, who supports us greatly with all of our work. And what's important to know is that everybody involved are doing various roles. So even down to the telephone call handlers, they may actually be supporting on an event or a talk as well. So that's how our 81 volunteers are made up. That number fluctuates year by year as well. So we have natural drop-off and new people coming on year by year. But we'll talk a little bit about that later on. So as with most of you, we are very policy driven, and we have policies for basically everything, although I'm sure we've got some that we don't have. But effectively, our big policy is our welfare policy. That covers legislation, the transportation, how our rehab areas, housing, location, etc. are to be managed, how the handling of the hedgehogs are. We only admit hedgehogs, obviously, it's what it says on the tin. So basically everything is covered in that, how we don't have music playing in our hospitals. If we're transporting, we keep noise to a minimum, no car radios. A release policy, our guidelines about release, which covers, as I'm sure all of you have got, weather, our euthanasia policy. So basically where we, it's written that with certain animals that come into care that need to be euthanized and the reasons why. A donations policy. So as a charity, and as you all appreciate, finders donate money. They may donate cash when they are delivering the hedgehog or when they are having the hedgehog back. All cash donations must be paid into the charity website. So nobody is to keep any payments. They're all to be paid in. But if we receive donations of food to feed the hedgehogs, maybe some minor equipment, etc., then carers are allowed to keep those, but they must declare them. We've got a complaints policy, safeguarding policy, health and safety policy, which is quite full. So that's got including lone working, etc., within caring for hedgehogs in hot weather. So, you know, the weather is actually heating up at the moment. It's not extreme at the moment, but we have a policy that assists our carers on how to manage them in their hospitals or in outside runs during the extreme weather. Captivity. So we have a policy on captivity, and ours are around the reasons that we don't keep hedgehogs in captivity. All hedgehogs that come in must be viable for a release back into the wild. We have various handbooks. So we have a handbook on basic care. So everybody gets that when they join us. And that includes record keeping, cleaning, PPE, picking up hedgehogs. So some of it is repeated from our welfare policy, but it's their Bible that they receive when they join us, and it's got lots of information. It's currently around 75 pages. We've then got an additional handbook as people progress through our training regime. Then they will be given what we call a secondary and a primary carer handbook. And then we're going down the lines of medication, how to assess a hedgehog when it comes into care, what to look for, medications, etc., why they may get certain conditions. So it's a slightly more detailed book, and we give that as people are progressing. We've got a TV and a media policy. So basically what we will and what we won't do if we're approached by TV or media and the showing of hedgehogs. We've got a hoglet policy, and we've also got a hoglet manual because, as we all know, they're slightly different to the juveniles or the adult hedgehogs. We have a diet policy, what we feed and what we don't feed, and the measures of food that are given to hedgehogs when they're in our care. A disturbed nest policy, so that is if somebody has found a disturbed nest, and really what advice we would give to a finder, but actually then it's about our process of what we do with a disturbed nest if we are bringing it into care. We have a volunteer agreement, which we'll touch on later. But that is really important. It's a very key document, and that also contains a lot of our rules within that, and that's a 3-page document. We've got our insurance policies, we've got events and talks policies, how we expect our volunteers to act on events and talks, the non-taking of obviously the wildlife to them, etc. And then we've got a policy on hospital and rehab inspections, and we carry out inspections on a regular basis on all of our volunteers, and they do tend to be unannounced. So that's in a nutshell the policies that we've got. Like I say, some may be a 1 to 2 page document, some are more detailed and can be a number of pages, but they're all quite relevant, and they're all at easy access for any of our volunteers to reach, and that they also form part of their initial training when they come on board. So recruiting, how do we get to be having 80 plus volunteers? So we recruit, we only recruit once a year for hands-on care, and once a year for telephone training. And anybody that comes on board to a Hedgehog helpline has to go through our formal training before we will accept them. We also make it clear that when they come on board to a Hedgehog helpline, it is our training regime, and it doesn't give them a certificate to say that they are a qualified rehabber to, you know, go and get a job somewhere, because it's specific to us. So we hold, when we recruit, we ask people to apply an expression of interest for us, and we submit them an application form, and it's a basic application form, and it's asking them basic questions. Have they got somewhere suitable that they can house hedgehogs? So if somebody's living in a bed sit, for example, that wouldn't necessarily be suitable because they are sleeping, eating and living within sort of one room, so it wouldn't be suitable to have cages. So that could be that somebody is turning a spare room in their house, their garage, a shed, but it's just really for us to find out what they've got. Have they got access to electricity? So if they've got a shed that they wish to use, do they have electricity in that shed? Are they willing to drive? Because we're all satellite, it's really important for training that they attend the mentor's hospital to receive training, to be picking up the hedgehogs from their mentor or from the secondary carer, and also to release the hedgehogs. So as I said earlier, we release all the hedgehogs back to where they came from, either to the finders or to a release site that we've approved close to where they were found. So there is an element of travelling in, so we need to know whether they're prepared to travel. And we also give them the dates of the training and ask if they're able to attend the 2 compulsory days. We only do that once a year, and the reason we do it once a year is, as you're all aware, we have quiet periods, medium periods, and absolutely crazy periods. So Jan, Feb, March tend to be our quieter periods, so they allow us to catch up on lots of bits and pieces. That allows us to do external training, bringing on new volunteers, getting them embedded into the organisation, and making them feel valued, answering any questions, going through different elements with them so that they're settled, ready for when we have the onslaught. At the moment, we're experiencing lots of admissions of adult hedgehogs with injuries, and we're getting ready for hoglets to start coming in. We've had quite a few pregnant females in with injuries, so we know that they're imminent, and I know that there are many rescues across the country who've had them in. Everyone that comes on board has to sign a volunteer agreement. That also includes me as a volunteer, Graham as a trustee, Graham as our trustee and our vet. we all sign the volunteer agreement every year. And that is the basis. It is a lot of rules and regulations that we expect the volunteers to adhere to. We review it every year, and something may have happened during the year that we feel is important to remind our volunteers of, so we will put it in the volunteer agreement. The volunteer agreement also states that any volunteer that comes on board on a 6-month probation period. And they basically, so it's a little bit like starting professional work. They're on a probation period. Therefore, if they don't fit, etc., then the decision can be mutually made to end the agreement at any time. They also have the option that if life changes, and life changes, let's be honest, for everybody, that they can leave at any time. They can take a break. We've got that in there about our insurance, how we expect them to act, the welfare of the hedgehogs, the kit, etc. So that is all included in the volunteer agreement. As I say, that is issued every year on a compulsory annual event date, which is a training day for every volunteer to come together on the same day. We supply basic kits, so when somebody comes on board, we will supply them with basic kit, which is including pens, heat pads, anagine, handbook, competency book. We will also give them pet carriers if we have pet carriers, etc. They're all issued to the volunteers. What I should have mentioned is we do charge for a volunteer to attend our training day. And that is more to show a commitment coming on board as opposed to actually making money. We don't make money from them coming on the training day, but it's to show a commitment because we're giving up so much time and we're investing in kit, etc. It's a commitment. And what we do find is that when they have the application form, they realise then we'll have a telephone conversation with them that actually it isn't what they were expecting. So they may at that point drop off, or they may attend the training day and realise that actually it's not suitable for me. We recently had one who's a wonderful guy who would have made a great volunteer. His wife and his mother-in-law were currently undergoing cancer treatment, and he didn't feel it was right to be involved in wildlife rehab whilst they were undergoing all of their treatment, which was the right decision for him. And anybody who was receiving treatment or immunosuppressed, then we do ask them not to continue volunteering, but he was more concerned about them, so that was great. Everyone who comes on board starts as a bed and breakfast carer, so that's what we call our entry-level volunteer. And the reason we do that is so that they are seeing hedgehogs that have received medication, they have maybe had wound treatment, etc., and they're getting them up to weight, ready for release. And they're actually seeing hedgehogs that are relatively healthy. They're on their way to being released. And so if they're aware of how a relatively healthy and then a healthy hedgehog looks like when they're being released, they can spot the signs if then they notice anything changing with that hedgehog. And that's really important, because when a hedgehog moves on, it's obviously not being seen, say, by myself or one of my colleagues on a day-to-day basis or every couple of days. So it's important that they understand how a hedgehog acts and what they should be looking like to notice that there are signs. So they could notice that actually the weight is starting to drop. They've noticed a difference in their fecal matter. It could be they've started some spines dropping, etc. And then they can update us, and then we will either go out to check the hedgehog or readmit the hedgehog back into the primary bed space. So how we work. So we operate 365 days per year, and we operate our helpline for 365 days per year. and that is including Christmas Day. I cover the Christmas Day phone and Boxing Day. And since we've been doing that, we started doing that around 6-7 years ago. And every Christmas Day, we have admitted a hedgehog. And I think it's incredible that somebody spots a hedgehog out in the day or sees them injured and actually rescues them and tries to get help and are happy to deliver on Christmas Day. And they always bring us a box of chocolates, which just blows my mind that they've done this for the hedgehog. And they're also thinking of the carer when they're actually bringing the hedgehog. So it is worthwhile, but we don't expect our telephone call handlers to cover the phone Christmas Day, although anybody that has got a hedgehog in on Christmas Day, obviously, as you all know, we work Christmas Day. Our vet is responsible for every single admission that comes in. So he may not see every admission, but he is responsible for every admission that comes in to us. And we're admitting an average of 1,200 hedgehogs per year. And he's responsible for each one. And so the finder finds the hedgehog, it calls us, we triage it, and we pass the details over to the admissions, and the admission is arranged. The finders deliver the hedgehog. There are occasions we'll go and pick up the hedgehog, but as a rule, the finders we like to deliver. We carry out a full assessment, as you all do, with the hedgehog. And if on arrival we know that we need the vet, then Graham is contacted immediately, and that may be at 10 o'clock at night. Or as I said, that could be on a Sunday morning, a Sunday afternoon, a Saturday morning. Then he is involved, and we would get the hedgehog to him, or he would come and see the hedgehog. And we would go from there and do operations, etc. The vet has full access to our records at all times. So at any time of day or night, he can have access into all of our records. Our records are kept on paper and electronically, and they're updated on a daily basis. So he has access to them on a daily basis, and he can see what drugs we're giving to each hedgehog, and he can see the pattern of when we're giving them as well. So he has complete control over what is happening. We create the treatment and the care plan, and that is reviewed daily. Once the hedgehog is stable, we look to move on to our secondary team, who have undergone training on our competencies to continue medication. That frees up a primary space, and that keeps the hedgehogs moving through the system. And so the secondary team then, they're trained and they will complete medication. So whereas the primary units will hold medication for all areas, and we keep a good stock of medication, and we place orders on a regular basis to keep our stock high. The secondary team hold a very small amount of drugs, and that is because they're finishing off and they're not admitting hedgehogs. If the hedgehog requires further rehabilitation, it gets moved on to bed and breakfast. We're coming into hoglet season, so all of our hoglets, our policy is that each hoglet spends time in an outside run until we know they're making a suitable nest, and they're rewilded up after being hand fed. So they all spend time in an outside run. The final carer then is responsible for releasing the hedgehog back to the finder or back to one of our approved release sites. And all of our release sites that are on our book have all been checked and they've all been approved. They've all got nest boxes. They're all prepared to support feed and provide water. So they are all of our hedgehogs are released on a soft release. We don't do hard releases. As I've touched on, all of our admissions come with a paper pack. They all have a admittance form with all the details on. They have a discharge form. They have daily paperwork for daily records, and they have a medication record, which has got all the meds all tracked out ready. So when we know that somebody is receiving Profender over the 15 days, it's all marked out on the medication sheet. So it's very easy to see when the meds are due. And in addition to the paper formats, we update electronically each day and after each admission that comes in, so everyone can see that documentation. So our field hospitals, our admission units are very different to our secondary and our bed and breakfast units. And they're all separate units. They're all run with a separate electricity circuit as well, away from the house. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we wouldn't have somebody as an admissions with running their hospital from a spare room in their house, because we certainly have had that until one retired. And it was, you know, kitted out, it was lovely. So it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to go and have a very expensive unit out in their back garden. Some people may not have the space for that or have the desire for that. But there are certain things we expect. So floors need to be washable, they need to have washable worktops, etc. So they all house a fridge, a microwave, incubators with the built-in nebulizers, incubators separate for hoglet, so we don't mix our incubators that are used for hoglet care for any adult or juvenile admissions. Even though they're cleaned and they're rigorously cleaned, we just don't mix them, we keep them very separate. They've got ultrasound machines, so especially this time of year and actually right through, we will carry out ultrasounds on female hedgehogs to see if they're pregnant, or if they have, or if they have not long had a litter, because you can actually see the empty sacs if they've not long had a litter. The suction machines, the nebulizers, what all of you have got. They're temperature controlled, and they've got humidity recorders in. They've got temperature gauges, etc. So we are trying to keep the ambient level the same as nest levels. They've all got lockable medication cabinets, so all meds are locked away. They're prescription meds, so it's the same that we should be operating as we are in any practice. The cabinets are built in. They've got temperature gauges within, so that we can see what the temperatures are in the medication cabinet. So if they need to be removed at any time when we have the extreme heat or cold, then the medication can be moved out of there and put in an appropriate place. They all have human first aid kits, fire extinguishers, a visitor book, and it's important that I mention that these are for volunteers only. So members of the public are not invited into any of our field hospitals, and it is in exceptional circumstances that somebody would be allowed entrance into one of our primary units. We've also got quarantine areas within them. So ongoing training, so this is the important part, and I think what makes us quite successful as home rehabbers. That's what we are. We're home rehabbers. I'm a home rehabber. We all work and operate for Hedgehog Helpline. We are volunteers of Hedgehog Helpline, but we are operating from our own premises. And whenever a volunteer comes on board, they are given a competency book. And this is designed to take somebody with no knowledge at all to an experienced carer under guidance. Now, if I give you some of my background, I'm a qualified accountant. I've always loved hedgehogs. I got into volunteering with Hedgehog Helpline because I found an autumn juvenile, and I contacted Hedgehog Helpline, and very shortly after they were running a course. So that's how I became involved. So you know, I had no experience at all. And like with anybody, if you saw a dog walking down the street or a cat and it had mange, you would know straight away that there was something wrong with that. But not many people know with hedgehogs, etc. So the training is really, really important. And this is what our competency book is designed to do. And we review our competency book as well. So each person that comes on board are assigned a mentor, and that's even including our telephone call handlers. They have a mentor. So they're assigned a mentor. So we would then look to mentor and train our team. So each volunteer need to understand how we operate, and also understand hedgehog care and what can cause stress to the hedgehogs, etc. So it's really important that they do that, and that is all within the competencies. To learn, they need to be attending the primary unit on a regular basis to undertake hands-on training. So when one of them comes to the hospital, they may be coming specifically for training. So it could be that we've had a hedgehog in, that is a particularly interesting case. We will contact them and say, can you get here quick? And that can be at any time, because we will admit until late in the evening, wherever we can. We try and manage it during reasonable hours, but sometimes it's not always possible. So we will look at being admitting at 10 or even midnight. Although we're not open 24 hours a day, that's important to stress. So when somebody really wants to learn, they will put in lots of effort, or even when somebody is coming to pick up a hedgehog to continue its care, I will say to them, oh, look, I've just been doing some microscopy work, take a look under there and let me know what you see. And our training is continually reviewed. Everybody that comes on board at a B&B level, there is an expectation that before they're considered for any advanced training, that they take a minimum of 20 hedgehogs from us. And within the competency book, they need to record the reference number and the date that they've had the hedgehogs and the date that they've been released. So they're important to keep their competency book up to date. And they have to give it back to us as mentors, and then finally the vet to sign off for them to move forward on their training. And that's really important. So I've had members of my team who have been exceptional, and then they've handed me their competency book to sign them off to continue their training, and they haven't filled in their competency book and expected me to fill in all their hedgehog references, which I have on my database. But I hand them the book back and I say to them, fill it in, get the information, fill it in and hand it back and I'll sign you off. So each volunteer is responsible for their own training record. We will keep it up to date, we will sign it off, and we know where each person is, but they have to keep that up. If anybody wishes then to move forward, they go through each level and they have to hit certain criteria during the competency book. And the competency book is written that they cover each area to be considered for the next stage. So they would start at B&B, they would be considered to go on to fluid training and secondary caring, and then on to primary as a primary in training. If they then wish to be a primary, so if it were a member of my team, I would have a conversation with them about becoming primary, and I would recommend to Graham that I felt that they were suitable to be considered. They would then have to work to submit case studies on hedgehogs that we would allow them to admit, and create care plans, etc., and case studies. And it's important for them to know that the hedgehog may pass away, and that doesn't mean that they're incapable. It just means that unfortunately we lose some hedgehogs. So they can have a case study on a hedgehog that has passed away, but it's what they've actually done and their care plan, etc., for that. And then they are interviewed, and nobody is considered for promotion, for want of a better word, at any time without Graham's meeting them and going through a formal interview process with them. So it sounds quite daunting, but it really isn't. But it's because Graham is responsible for every hedgehog and for the medication, etc., that we all hold. As primary carers then, Graham holds training with us a minimum of quarterly, and it can be more. And twice yearly as a charity. We also appreciate that our admission volunteers actually go through quite a lot. They're mentoring a team, they are admitting a lot of hedgehogs, they may be having a lot of hedgehogs that pass away. We all see that. And so we're very aware of compassion fatigue, dealing with finders, which can also be quite traumatic and quite upsetting. So twice a year we actually do a session with our primary carers, and it could be like last year we did a yoga afternoon, and we just had some salad, etc. This year we're doing a yoga session next month, and we're also part of that yoga will also be a sauna, etc. So we're actually trying to get them to de-stress and decompress, ready for the season ahead.